Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is Wednesday. It is May 25th, 2011. This is Day 9 Daily number 305, where we learn to be a better gamer. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Day 9, and I am a full-time professional StarCraft 2 commentator and player. I get to say that now! I get to say that because I got one of these! I got one of these! Is it a diploma? You might think it's a diploma. This is what they hand you when you're walking with your gown and your hat and all that amazing stuff, and then they hand you a placeholder. Diplomas are typically placed in the mail 4 to 6 weeks after a degree completion is recorded. I don't know if you can read this, but it says you may obtain an official transcript for just $10. I'm literally taking a photo, like, with my mother holding this thing, looking inside for, like, you need to give us a little more money if you need a transcript. But you know what? I received in the email yesterday that I have indeed graduated from the University of Southern California with a Master's of Fine Arts in Interactive Media. So that means that I've been promoted to the Real Life Masters League. I've used that joke like 100 times and I've never gotten tired of it. So now I'm going to be back doing the daily. Going to be doing a lot more fun, exciting, cool projects. There's some fun, exciting surprises coming within the next week that I won't tell you about. But they're neat. So that's some definite good news. In ultra exciting news, I actually recently visited Seoul, South Korea to visit my brother Nicholas Tasteless Plot. And get this. There are people who didn't know that he's my brother. I didn't know that this was true, but yes, that's right. Artosis is my mortal enemy, and Tasteless is my brother. So I went and visited him, and holy shit, Seoul is huge. Holy what the hell? How is a city that big? Okay, like, and I know you're probably like, what's the population? Like, just ignore that, all right? I don't care what you think it is, all right? It is unimaginably gigantic. It is far and away the hugest city I have ever been to by, like, multiple orders of magnitude. And I have been to Hong Kong, Singapore, New York multiple times. I've lived in Los Angeles for 7 years. Seoul dwarfs all of them. It makes New York City look like a bunch of pathetic shacks where people have to walk to a river with pails to get their water, right? It makes New York look so small. I mean, I don't know if, for any of you, just open up a map of, like, Los Angeles right now and look at downtown Los Angeles to Santa Monica to Long Beach. Imagine if all that was skyscrapers. It is just huge skyscrapers everywhere. Like, we got in a cab and we drove for an hour and there was nothing but skyscrapers the whole time, and then we looked on a map and we'd driven across like a fourth of Seoul. It's huge! It's huge! And some people are like, yeah, aren't you? What about Stockholm? You've been to Sweden? Dwarf Stockholm. Bam! Like, it is huge, the city. And there are so many people, and there's coffee shops everywhere. Everyone sells coffee. My brother took me to this souvenir shop where I got a little Yagami Light, like action figure thing. It was like all action figures and coffee. Was the two things that they sold. It was nuts. So that was weird. Like there's coffee shops everywhere. You know, in America, when people are like, oh yeah, they have like 2 Starbucks next to each other. In Korea, there's like a coffee shop on the first story, with a coffee shop on the second story and the third story. And if you look down the alley, there's like 3 more coffee shops and one behind you on the street, and they're all full. Like, you can't even find a place to sit down. There's like so many people drinking coffee. Like, any of you who have never been to Seoul, you must go. It is insane. It is awesome. Once again, I've lived in downtown Los Angeles for like 3 years now, and LA proper for like 7 years. And it is so crazy going to Seoul. You actually live in a crazy huge city when you're in Seoul, which of course gives me a newfound respect for my brother. Let me just say this. This is actually completely unimportant to the daily, and of course, all you're asking about my new room setup, and just calm down, I'll tell you about that. But okay, so my brother, in like 2007, my brother moved to Korea, all right? Moved to Seoul, South Korea, with kind of a job, right? Working at Arirang TV, and eventually he would later be employed by ZOMG, but I don't think he knew that then. I don't know if this is right, but this is what I understand, right? He moved there with that was the most secure thing. He didn't know anyone. He didn't speak Korean, and there no one speaks Korean, or no one speaks English in Korea. Like, he had to find himself an apartment. He literally got off a plane and just looked around and was like, all right, let's do this. And he did. And now my brother speaks Korean. It's so weird when he's like, oh my God, it's so crazy to see my brother, Nicholas Tasteless Plus, speaking freaking Korean. I can't even speak Pig Latin very well. But my God, what a total badass. And he even showed me this unreal kick-ass Street Fighter 4 club where these people bought out a restaurant, like an underground restaurant, and then you go down there and it's just nothing but like Street Fighter 4 cabinets and monitors, and there's like tons of people there just playing Street Fighter 4, and they're all so good, I can't believe it. And of course, my brother plays Blanca, because that is the only Street Fighter 4 character that can build cannons. For any of you who don't know how Blanca works, Blanca's basically the obnoxious, cheesy character. He's always like, whoa, like doing his little slide thing, like bopping you as a ball and stuff. It's exactly the way that my brother went to play. Like, he sat down with Balrog, and he was like, this guy plays too straight up. I need something a little bit more cheesy. So that's right, Nick, take that. Ugh. Bam! Got him. Whew. So, without any further ado, we should probably do the Day 9 Daily. The show that is my bread and butter now that So now let's go ahead and do the Day 9 Daily, which is my bread and butter, because now I'm a full-time StarCraft 2 commentator who is known every now and again to trip over the shit out of his words, but not today. I rearranged my room, bought some furniture. As many of you are saying, I didn't do anything different with my room. I just rotated it 180 degrees. You can see that way back behind me is my old corner where I used to have my desk. You can see all the WCG paraphernalia. You can even see StarCraft. There's the posters. Yes, there's... And you can even see, uh-oh, look by my elbow. You see that little gray figure? You see this little guy? That's Manfred. It's my rabbit. It's my rabbit. It's my bunny. My fucking bunny, man. I love my bunny. How are we doing on time? Good, we've been going for 7 minutes. Wow. Wow, I love talking. Cool. So, I wanted to note just a couple of things. I'm severely jet lagged, so tomorrow will likely be a pre-recorded thing. I'm just going to record it and say go, because I barely woke up in time for this thing, because right when I was getting ready to go to bed, a bunch of people came home with questionable levels of intoxication, all ready to play Rock Band at maximum volume, so I didn't really get to sleep that much. But we're going to do a daily today. I still haven't re-recorded 304, which was an amazing daily. It will occur probably over the weekend, but we shall see, pending jet lag. And now let's talk only about StarCraft. Let's just forget everything kick-ass that went on. I'll share you more kick-ass adventures that occurred within the last 2 weeks. But for now, let's dive into Terran versus Terran. Shit, I missed. Dumped coffee right on my pants. I don't care. You can't even see him. Might not even be wearing him. So Terran vs. Terran. There is a very fun activity that I always love to do in any matchup, which is to find points of convergence. To find some moment in the game where no matter what craziness you do, you always end up popping right back to here. So let me state one that I'm going to throw out in Terran vs. Terran, and once I say it, you're going to rewatch all those GSL matches with players like Bomber and MVP, and those are the only two people you really care about, don't you? No, you can watch some MMA, you can even watch some of your crazier buddies, like even Liquid Tialo, those sort of players. And you'll almost always, if they're going Marine Tank, you'll see the following formation. 1 command center, 1 factory making tanks, a starport with no reactor, and 2 barracks. 1 with tech lab, 1 with reactor. So let's just say that fast. 2 racks, 1 factory, 1 starport, 1 expo. There you go. You will very, very, almost nearly frickin' always see that formation. And I suppose you can throw in an engineering bay for a +1 upgrade, but I'm even going to make it a little bit more sparse than that. So once again, 2 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport, 1 expo. Now, the reason I state that as a point of convergence is a lot of people, especially newer players, like thinking about the basic opening stages. Am I going to go for a fast Banshee? Am I going to go for, just a Marine tank opening, something like that? And they'll do their opening. For instance, the fast Banshee, they'll do that. And then they'll hit a point where they're kind of going, I just don't know. And if you have a convergence point, you just know that you need to eventually dump towards that. I mean, hell, if I open Marine Tank and throw down a command center, what's the next best thing to do? Probably to add another barracks, then add another starport. Cool, because then I'm hitting that convergence point. What if I open for ultra-fast Banshee? Well, gee, I guess I should give that tech lab to my factory, the tech lab that helped me build a Banshee, should give that to the factory, build another barracks, and then take an expansion. You have a clear direction that we're going to go to. So I'm actually just going to load up a game of not TLO versus Happy. Not TLO versus Happy, just to give you a sense of what I'm talking about. Of course I'm going to turn the sound on. I actually intentionally turned it off just as a joke before the cast. They're not going to buy that one. But we're going to see Nama, who, as you know, is really, 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 really good. He's going to be doing it pretty typical. He's going to be making a barracks. Oh, very good. You know what? Let's go just to the virus Nama camp. Whoa, Nama, you're crazy. Okay. And we're going to see some convergence going on to 2 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport, 1 expo. So we're just going to start throwing things out there. Okay, he's building himself a very fast command center. Nifty. Ah, wonderful. Cool, because that's one of these things that we have to do. Hey, here's one of our barracks with the reactor. There's one of our things. So what is the next thing that he should get? Well, since he has gas, I would probably say a factory. If he ends up getting enough money, I would build a barracks, but probably not going to be building my second barracks until I have my starport up. You can just start to see 2 things going on. If you're watching games, you will note that they tend to hit this convergence point, that Terran versus Terran tends to reach this moment in time. And I mean, even with this craziness, whoa, he's going for Hellions, all this sort of stuff. And this is the part where people will start to get confused, right? Again, you'll watch a lot of games, you'll notice that there is this convergence point, so that way you can kind of just reinforce this idea that it's actually a good convergence point to be at. But more importantly, you can always watch these games with this idea in mind of, how are these buildings going to get rearranged? Now, this is something freaking crazy, nuts, bonkers, anti-jugular is a word that I have not said in quite some time. That's right, bejugular, the most kick-ass word known to man, bejugular. So we're going to see all these things. Whoa, this doesn't look like normal Terran versus Terran play. But I can tell you that it would be very reasonable for Nama, in his head, to be thinking of how to get 2 more tech labs. 1 for a barracks, 1 for a factory. Oh, yeah, there's another barracks going on. Oh, hey, look. Hey, look, how great is that? Yeah, sure, we went for Hellion with Medevac. What the heck? Wow, 6 Hellions. This all seems like crazy, bonkers, nutty, fruity, tooty business. But we have suddenly reconverged to something that makes a hell of a lot of sense. And now you're going to build a tech lab, Nama. Build a tech lab. Build a tech lab. Come on, I dare you. Build a tech lab. Asshole. Alright, you didn't build a tech lab. But still, you can kind of see almost exactly what I was talking about. If he built a tech lab, that would have been so cool. But instead, Nama, no, it'd be all finish and not build a tech lab. You know, like... People are like, Raffle rage quit. Yeah, it makes me angry when I try to make a point and some Nibnar doesn't do what I suggested he should do. Ugh, rage. But still, the point still stands that when you're playing, or if you're watching a game like this, and you're getting all confused, like, whoa, why is he going Hellions? Don't overthink it. Just say, Hellions are good because of blah. And we're going to go right back to this convergent point of 1 factory, 1 starport, 2 barracks. 1 with reactor, 1 with tech lab. So now what I want to do is load up a game of Liquid TLO versus Happy. 2 of my super favoritist players to watch. First, Liquid TLO. He is one of my favorite people to watch because he's one of my favorite people in the world. He's always so happy, and he's a little German. Oh, Billy Maudo. Very cool unit. TL, he's just creative, and no matter how nutty or insane his stuff seems to be, he actually kind of pulls it off. That's kick-ass, right? He always seems to do something crazy, but always back it up with being able to win. Like, I can go Mass Reapers against Protoss. Oh, don't think I can't, but then I'll lose promptly. TLO seems to have this ability to not lose. Happy, on the other hand, is a player who is ridiculously solid. He's one of my favorite players to watch in the whole world because he doesn't do anything insane. He does everything super straight up, everything amazingly effective. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to do the same exercise that we did last game. We're going to watch Happy's opening, and we're going to talk about this convergence point of 1 starport, 1 factory, 2 barracks, 1 command center. Or excuse me, 2 command centers. Should say an Expo command center. We're just going to go through this exercise again. We're going to see all these points of convergence. Okay, well, nothing out of the ordinary here. You want to get your, orbital command. You want to get some Marines out. Probably going to be building a factory soon. I don't see a reactor going down in the barracks. Yep, there's a factory going down. We'll likely be building a refinery here because I saw this replay, and replay files have a tendency not to change in between viewings. So, excellent. So he's doing that. And we're seeing Marines move out. All this assorted micromanaginess. That's fine. I don't care too much. It looks like he's building himself some Hellions, so that's good. Now, at this point in the game, should he be building a starport? Should he be going for tanks? Should he be doing anything crazy? Let's see what he ends up doing. Yeah, it looks like he waited a little while and threw down a reactor and a tech lab. You saw him tease out a starport, but then back that sucker right on up. And now he's getting a command center. Oh, cool. So what will he be building next? I would probably venture to say either a starport or a barracks. Yeah, hey, look, there's a starport going down. A whole bunch of crazy micro action going on. We're going to completely ignore what TLO's doing. Just want to talk about these convergence points right now. Just want to note that. Because what'll happen in your games is you might have a build order worked out that you love, and then you get messed with like this. It's pretty atypical to have to pull off all your SCVs, but no matter what, no matter how much you've been messed with, this convergence point of this starport and this extra barracks is going to be very helpful. No doubt we will see an additional barracks go down. Looks like we're going to see 2 additional barracks. But you'll notice that it has this same structure of more focus on the Marines, but still making sure we can get some of these meaty units out, the tanks and the starport. Notice we're not actually getting a reactor on this starport for quite some time either. That's pretty freaking darn important to note. So we're going to go ahead and go back to the everyone cam, because now we need to appreciate a little bit of TLO's amazingness. Now, what we've done so far is we've established this notion of a convergence point in Terran versus Terran. A convergence point, not the convergence point. Obviously, if I early expand and go 5 barracks, I'm not going to hit this convergence point. Obviously, if I'm going mass Hellion tank, I'm going mech, I'm not going to hit this convergence point. But for a typical Marine tank, this is a reasonable linchpin for your strategy, because you can just always rearrange everything to sort of dump into this point in space. So it becomes very useful for sort of this mental organization to have this little stone in the ground, or this stake in the ground next to the stone. So for all your future Terran vs. Terrans that you're watching, particularly for the GSL, because this is quite popular in Korea, I want you to just be aware of that and to always sort of think about things rearranging. Now, let's talk a little bit about this game just as a game with all this in mind, right? With all this sort of convergence pointedness in mind, we're going to see TLO spawn in the bottom left. We're going to see Happy, the amazingly stable superhero player, in the top right. Happy is a total badass. So, TLO now, going to be building SCVs. Always good to do. And by the way, this worker pairing, I'm actually torn on whether or not it's good. I'm really torn on whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing. Because obviously it's cute, but I don't know if you lose too many minerals trying to force it to occur. So, whatever. I'm not going to stress about it too much. So we are seeing TLO. He's going to be getting a barracks and a command center. No gas, interestingly. Oh my goodness. And this very early moment in gameplay is one of the most important things in all of StarCraft 2 for you to consider. What is TLO going to do? Right? If you were playing a Terran game and you get in Terran's base and you see 1 barracks, you see no gas, what is he going to do? He's going to early expand, right? That's what he's going to do. People are saying early expand. Very good. Very good. Early expo. KD. First to say early expo. Nice. Bing. Yeah, early expo. Early expo. Yeah. All this is good. And some people are jokingly saying, oh, he could be going 6 barracks all in. For any of you who don't know that build, the way it works is you build a barracks, you build 15 SCVs, and then you wait until you have 750 minerals, you throw down 5 barracks, and just rally Marines for the win. Now let's actually use those 2 examples. You scout there and he's doing early expand, or he's doing some sort of 6 racks all in-ish. There's this big mistake that people will do. Let's pretend that I've never ever heard of this 6 racks thing. I've only ever seen early expanding players. This is the mistake. You get in there and you'll say, aha, I can conclude that he is going early expand. That's not the correct statement. That is not the correct statement. The correct statement is he is not going to Port Banshee. It is incorrect to identify precisely what he's doing. What you actually should be doing is crossing off the stuff he can't be doing. It's a subtle difference, but it's still very important to note. Because, honestly, Terrans 95% of the time will be early expanding upon this formation. 95% of Terrans will expand if they have 1 barracks, no gas. But that 5% still has possibilities like big barracks all-ins or just funky regular barracks attacks. So what this means is that you always have to account for it. And the mistake that people will do in addition to this is that they'll say, well, if 95% of the time he's early expanding, then that's all I really need to worry about. I can ignore this 5%, or I don't really need to prepare for this 5%. Yes, you do, my friend. Yes, you freaking do. As a great example, in the early Brood War days, almost everyone early expanded as Protoss. 90% early expanded. The other 9% would do a very fast gas build as Protoss. And 1% of players would go for a 2-gate build. It was very, very uncommon to go for 2-gate. Except for Liquid Tyler, who would 100% of Protoss vs. Zergs go for a 2-gate build and be damn good at it. So what this meant is before a tournament, I just had to really, really, really aggressively prepare for a 2-gate build. And the year that I didn't, he just frickin' demolished me. So you need to account for these sorts of things that can actually go on. And what we're going to see is this interesting interaction occur where TLO builds 2 barracks and a gas geyser the instant that that SCV ends up departing from the base. So we're going to see Happy just do sort of a usual aggressive opening. Because, in Happy's mind, there's probably some thought process of, oh, likely an early expand, etc., etc., etc. But we're going to see TLO do this very interesting double tech lab play. He's building Marines one at a time. He's moving his Marines out. All is good and well. Now, if you were up against a player who was making a lot of barracks, you would very often throw down a bunker and go for a starport or something like this. We're going to see more Marines come out, more battling. This is a little bit of a clever opening at this point in time for TLO. But we're going to see, again, that Happy is going to throw down these reactors and tech labs, and he's going to be thrown off quite a bit. And once these Marauders are revealed, that is kind of a holy crap moment for Happy. Should absolutely probably be throwing down a bunker unless he's 100% confident that he can barely hold. But, in a general sense, he's seeing a bunch of stuff come at him that he wasn't expecting to come at him, so he should very, very reasonably get some sort of defense up. Totally kick ass. So what I want to note right now is this opening from TLO that you're probably thinking, ooh, this is good. Let's actually advance to the moment where you might be inspired to become Liquid TLO yourself. Seeing everything in total retreat. Seeing SCVs advance forward from TLO, and oh my god, so many units and SCVs coming out. Oh, how extremely baller TLO feels. Ooh, he picks off the tank. Good to keep that tank count low. Intimidation, aggression, flexing. This is how you're probably feeling about TLO. We're even noting he has a marginal advantage in the SCV count. Alright, cool. Now, what did I spend the entire beginning of this daily talking about? This idea of a convergence point. A point in the future where we're getting the general mix of units that we want that are good. Like tanks and Marines, that is a general mix that we want. So that's why I talked about this convergence point of 2 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport, 1 expansion. 2 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport, 1 expansion. Hammer that into your head. Now we're seeing TLO do something that is bonkers. So freaking bonkers, in fact, that you're probably wanting to do this. You're probably wanting to do this aggression. This is great. But what I want to illustrate is that TLO is not going to be doing this forever. How does he end up popping out of this moment in time in gameplay. We're going to see a very clever set of transitions. Let's not over-theorize about what TLO could do. Let's instead look at what he does do, and then sort of talk about why it's smart. So TLO, now in terms of just general RTS thinking, obviously this is a good time for TLO to take an expansion because his opponent is clearly on the defensive. TLO clearly has map control. An obviously correct decision for TLO to make would be to take this expansion command center. Fantastic. So then what happens? We see 2 starports end up going down. This is seemingly insane. There's the scan going on. We see Happy, identifying that there's this 2 starport play going on. Oh my goodness, Banshee's coming down, and a last-second cancel. Let me actually back up to just this moment right here. Upon someone viewing this moment in the game, excuse me, I also neglected to mention that I got very ill in Korea, and it was very fairy tale-esque, because whenever I laughed, I would cough instead. Oh, Day 9 went to Korea, and he lost his ability to laugh. How tragic, but that's fine. I just sort of coughed through it. Now, there's mutiny going on outside. So apparently what you would end up looking at in this game is you would be like, oh my god, he just went for this 3 barracks aggression play, and then he just decided that he was going to go for Banshees. Oh, craziness, craziness, my head's going to explode. But I still want to note that even if TLO did Banshees, as we see he did not end up going for the Banshees, we see that he's going to move this factory right on back. He's going to be building himself some tanks. He's getting Banshees with Cloak first. We have Barracks producing Marines. We have our expansion down. We see Happy's expansion down. This is the same look as before. This is the same look. Instead of 2 barracks, 1 with reactor and 1 with tech lab, we just have 3 barracks. And then we have 1 factory and 1 starport with no reactor. We ended up in the same basic point as we did before. And this is one of those beautiful examples of what you'll hear people say in every game, where they'll say, look, learn how to play in the sort of straight up way, don't get overly creative, and then you can get creative once you know the rules and why you can break them and why you can bend them. So, excuse me, this is a great example that you'll see every good Terran player really largely steering towards this Marine tank medevac mixture. And then you'll see some clever ones throw in some Hellions here, throw in some Banshees, some Ravens here, maybe do some more drop play, maybe get some Marauders, Ghosts in there. But they're all dancing around the same basic set of stuff, where everyone's kind of doing the same thing. TLO wasn't intending on going Marine, Banshee, Hellion for the remainder of the game, completely divorcing his play from the standards. He's going to end up having something that's pretty typical looking, and there finally is the tech lab going down. Here are the tanks in the siege mode going down, and 1 Banshee to rule them all. Another important thing to note that's coming out of Camp Happy is that this guy is, for the most part, doing fine, right? He's at 70 food. His opponent is at 80 food. Nothing too out of the ordinary from Happy. And this is, again, a very typical mistake to make where here's a good way to put it. So there is the standard thing, and if you just go straight up for the standard, you're going to have a really strong-ass army. And it can handle a little bit of beating and still be very, very strong. If you any divergence you do from the standard that's creative or cute harms your normal play. So you have to do a lot of damage with your creativity to be able to justify your divergence from that. So, in other words, we see Happy, who seemed to take a beating, but look at this. He has more tanks than his opponent. Happy has 3 tanks. His opponent has 1 tank. Happy has more Marines. He has 16 Marines. His overall core army is bigger than TLO's. TLO has some Marauders, which are of, questionable use in the later stages of the game. He's starting to get tanks. He's starting to get Marines. In other words, TLO, for all his creativeness at the start, actually does not have as much of the good standard mix as you would want in Terran vs. Terran at this particular juncture. So, people will, in other words, mistakenly think that Happy is far behind when actually he is not. And people will mistakenly think that TLO is doing craziness when he is in fact bouncing back to something standard as can be. TLO will eventually want to have more upgrades and all that good business. You even see TLO getting these factories out. This might seem like is he going for a mech/infantry mix? In my eyes, this is another way of saying, my goodness, I am behind on tank count. I better catch up in tank count quite a bit. TLO will end up playing with this position. But now all of a sudden we split away from all that fun opening discussion, and we're just going to examine some standard positioning that both players are going to do very well. And this is something that TLO just does marvelously. He will consistently have excellent positioning throughout the game. And we're seeing TLO barely keeps that tank alive. Happy actually just pulled back an inch too early. But we're seeing this clear advantage Happy has, where because he stayed focused, I mean, he has combat shield, he has stim. TLO has neither combat shield nor stim. He does have this extra expansion, but, he's trying to hustle and get more tanks up. This game is actually a beautiful demonstration of how Happy's incredibly typical orthodox play is helping him get ahead and helping him swing stronger advantages. Really, the only slightly off normal thing that Happy's done is gotten himself a Raven, whereas a lot of players would often skip the Raven. But TLO has, all his craziness, all his nutty unit mixes. But Happy is going to stay focused. He's going to swing along this right flank and take his gold. A very, very normal key focus position. So we're seeing Happy now get his upgrades, get more barracks, get more tanks. And I talked a lot about this idea of convergence points at the start, where a very early convergence point is 2 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport, and an expansion. You can create convergence points for yourself where you say 3 expansions and 4 barracks and 2 factories and 1 starport with reactor. And then you can always end up dancing towards that as well. You can do all your sort of creative stuff, but always say to yourself, I will always return back to these convergence points at some point in time. And of course, one of the big uses of the Banshee tactically is that you can always pick off tanks that are sort of at the outskirts. Marine tank Banshee is also very, very effective. Another good thing to have on any map is you're going to see key attack points and goals. TLO is actually extremely defensive at this point because he's really taken a big beating both from the direct attacks from Happy and also from this 3 barracks opening that TLO did. TLO hurt himself dramatically by doing that opening in terms of his mid-game. And what the hell does that mean? The 3 barracks attack was good in the early game. It helped out a bunch. It did damage. It secured TLO a nice position. But it harmed TLO's ability to set himself up good in the mid-game. It hurt TLO's ability to have a lot of tanks, to have the stim, to have the combat shield, to where he could do stuff. Again, any creative deviation you make harms your sort of standardness. So yeah, this is good that TLO is playing defensively. TLO is not dumb for playing defensively. He didn't mess up because he's playing defensively. It's what he accepted upon doing this opening with the 3 barracks and upon taking this very fast third. Now, Happy is doing a very smart thing. He's attacking the 2 weakest points for a Terran opponent. One is this flank, because it's hard to jam a bunch of units through here, and it's very easy to get a big arc here. And also this point over here is the other weak point for Terran, because you can siege up and march into the main, and it's very difficult to get units up because you can siege in range of that. So yeah, Happy just doing the simple dance. He's just sort of bouncing over here, and then he's going to swing back on over here. Tactically, there's nothing too complicated about this. Happy just has to be very, very careful, have excellent judgment in terms of these timings of aggression, but is still very, very solidly sticking to these 2 points in time. TLO doing his TLO-like thing, sort of moving his expansions over. And Happy is going to be very, very careful. He's not going to just drill his way forth. And again, we see TLO kind of having the Gypsy Command Center, cannot really find a place to have a home. The Wandering Command Center. And now TLO, going to make a little counter-aggression of his own. Now, I would actually state that this is quite frequently a very risky move to do, because you're coming from a closed space into a wide open space. And that's something that I think is very easy to not consider. Because you'll hear me say things like, yeah, Happy's being smart by just attacking this weak point, and you can be like, alright, well, I'm going to be smart and just dedicate myself to attacking up this point. But almost always, you do not want to be attacking from a thin space to an open space in like any matchup at all. So this is actually quite a risky move from TLO. I would want to examine what did he end up seeing before then, because this could potentially be a very illuminating tactical example. So TLO sees a lot of forces over here, and it looks like the amount of units that he saw over here. He stopped by the Zelnaga watchtower. You'll see a lot of players hit here and then go, holy crap, and pull right back. This is a very, very, very risky move. Obviously, this isn't risky because there's no units here, but the fact is that you'll generally not know that. And TLO is sort of defending himself by having a lot of siege tanks here to try to cut stuff off. Just a small amount of units moving up here. And this is one of those classic TLO amazing tactical plays where it was this sort of union of, okay, there's a lot of stuff here, so that means I can swing over to this right flank, but I'm also going to have a whole bunch of units to try to cut off reinforcements. This force, in actuality, is not so big, but this many tanks is going to be huge. So Happy ends up getting himself a little bit hurt. And it's kind of funny to note, you heard... Surely not, it couldn't be. It's Wednesday, May 25th, 2011. This is Day 9 Daily number 305, Part 2, because my computer crashed! No! As many of you know, before I left for Seoul, South Korea, I was having computer issues. I had no ability to fix them due to the fact that I was trying to graduate from the University of Southern California, which, though I did successfully, impeded my progress in fixing up this POS frickin' computer. So I came back on a plane, went to sleep, woke up, said, let's do a daily. Did a daily, computer crashed. Crap. Crud, butts, damn. Pretty upset about that. But you know what? It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal for a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm going to fix it tonight. Second of all, literally am purchasing like an entirely... It's not important. It's going to be fixed, all right? Let's just finish this daily. Let's just finish this. Can't believe it. TLO's awesome, all right? Right when we ended up exploding everything known to man, we were watching TLO do an amazingly clever tactical maneuver. And we're seeing TLO back in home base still have the approximately same setup as your average Terran bear, with the usual lots of barracks pumping out Marines, lots of factories churning out as many tanks as possible. Just your usual goody-goody mixy-mix. And in the unit counting station, we see that, yeah, TLO finally has returned back to that usual standard tank Marine structure. Kind of having some tanks continuing to park here. Continuing to have tanks progress from the left. Now, one thing that I want to note is that with whatever unit mix you end up doing, I want you just to think about what the good places to hold and the good places to attack, and kind of how your whole army is going to operate. Now, if that sounds like a really big, complicated question, it actually is. So what I would love if you did is just think about the spectrum of a composition. Let's just pick two units, Marines and tanks. And let's just try to figure out what it would be like if we were at the all-Marine end, if we were at the all-tank end, if we were sort of somewhere in between. If you're at the all-Marine end, you're probably doing that Marine King style, Marine Medevac Marauder business where you're highly mobile. Well, gee, this seems like a good spot to sort of swing some units in. Doing drops over here seems pretty good. Having a lot of movement through here seems pretty good because you're going to have such a beastly army. If you're doing an all-tank army, it's going to be a little bit different. Let's not go through that specific example because we have two more to look at here, where we're seeing Happy go mainly Marines with some tanks, right? He has two factories making tanks. Woo, making way too many tanks. But in the unit counting station, we see that he's generally favoring the Marine front. We're seeing TLO generally favor the tank front. So a couple of key positions for like a tanking player. This is one of the most important positions on the whole map for tanks. Not just because it kills off this expansion, but because it makes this expansion very easy to attack. Because obviously we have this secured. It makes this expansion very easy to defend. And it pretty much locks off any aggression at this weak spot on the map as well. For, this slightly more mobile player, yeah, these sorts of things are good, but we won't be able to hold those positions as strongly because we have fewer tanks. We're going to have to be trying to be slightly more mobile, maybe getting in a touch more aggressive of situations. And at this point in the game, we're going to see TLO move over to this side and basically just siege up. just sort of constrict movement. And this is something that's very, very common for a player who has a lot of siege tanks. A lot of siege tanks are very immobile, obviously. They're good at holding positions, obviously. So you want to try to hold as many positions with them as you can. Because they are immobile, if you can break a tank position, you're going to be in golden, amazing shape, right? You're going to be in amazing shape, right? So if Happy kills this off, he can easily begin being aggressive here. But TLO, what can TLO do? He can't actually be that aggressive with all these forces. Because this is a lot of the reason why players favor having some tanks, but mostly Marines, is that they have the flexibility to sort of like move around with the Marines while these tanks are here. TLO does not really have this flexibility. He can sort of reinforce his tanks with these sort of limited numbers. But for the most part, he's going to have some units here and some units here. So the more tanky you are, the more you should be trying to spread out and hold key positions. Not spread out too much, but the more you should be trying to have like multiple essential positions held. Like TLO might be stretching a little bit far down here to this right side. Obviously, good stuff, picking off that medevac. But leaving some tanks here, like this is actually a potentially quite risky play for TLO. It's going to work out well because if we look at the food count, 163 to 122, but generally the only reason you'd be able to do this is because you do have an advantage. Right now what Happy's going to do is he's going to try to find the weakest point in this tank line and try to snap through it. Unfortunately, TLO chooses, or Happy chooses like the strongest point and has tanks galore all over the place. This is actually what TLO is trying to avoid. Trying to avoid being broken at any of these key positions that he's holding, while Happy is going to try to drill into it with all his forces as much as possible, break in, and sort of force all of TLO's troops to retreat. Right now, again, TLO with his ridiculous food advantage can just sort of not really worry about that. But despite having this huge food advantage, I want you to note that the strategy is not really going to change for TLO. That's kind of an important thing to note. Like, this actually, weirdly enough, happens a ton at like High Master and Grandmaster level, where you will see like the Grandmaster Terran play tactically beautifully in close games, but make big blunders when they're ahead. That sounds completely counterintuitive, but it is absolutely true. You will see this occur all the time where, you'll see the player who's in TLO's position will, in a close game be securing this area, in a close game be securing this area, in a close game sneaking things up here to maybe do some damage. But then when they get ahead, they'll just be like, yeah, I'm clearly winning, and they'll start sending tons of forces here. They'll be trying to group all their tanks up and attack, and they'll end up losing a lot of units in awkward positions, end up coming back to it, like stumbling their way back to a close game again. What we're going to see TLO do, as he slowly suicides units up to this way because he has a messed up rally point, he's still going to be playing this slightly more passive, slightly more defendy sort of style, where he's going to be just trying to hold positions with siege tanks. And that is absolutely correct, because he is favoring more tanks in his mix. He's also favoring not having his command center close to his minerals. LOL, it's one space away. So we're seeing TLO make a slow crawl here. I mean, hell, if you look at the unit counting station, TLO has more tanks than his opponent, has more Marines than his opponent, has more SCVs. The only advantage Happy has is a mule. LOL. But actually backing up for just 1 second here. But TLO is not actually going to be trying to grab everything and go in for a kill. Even though he has way more units, that's still a little bit risky. If you have tons of tanks, you want to be sort of like inching together, constricting movement, holding key positions, gaining more expansions. You don't want to be going all gung-ho, trying to break through whatever defense he has at the front, because that's when the game swings back in his direction. There's a bug. Oh, jeez, that scared the crap out of me. That is a big bug. Oh my god, I was making a huge point, but I hate bugs. Oh my god. Alright, he's been attracted to my giant floodlight in my room. Oh my god. Oh god, that scared me so much. Oh my god, I don't see him. Okay, I'm actually going to finish this point. Oh my god, that was so scary. Manfred. Woo! Alright, so Yes, if you are going for a more tank-heavy composition, the huge mistake that is so frequent to see people do is they just get over-aggressive, particularly when they have that advantage. You want to do a boa constrictor style play if you have more immobile units. So trying to do the comparison to the other races, what are some more immobile units for, say, well, Protoss doesn't really have as much of a mobility issue. I mean, generally units are quite mobile in StarCraft 2. Tanks just have that obvious siege mode business going on. However, I want to again emphasize though that like if you're going for that more immobile muscular force, don't get all gung ho, get all trigger happy, and try to just end the game. And if you are having like a sort of mobile force, what you're really looking to try to do is try to catch him at an awkward spot. To try to just jam in there and to find a weak point, attack with everything, and force him to come to you with all your siege tanks. I really think that that's one of the reasons why Terran vs. Terran is like the most interesting and dynamic matchup, just because like that whole siege versus unsiege busyness. So yeah, you know what, we're going to take some questions, then I'm going to wrap this daily up. I'm hoping we can recover the recording file. Wow, 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 wow. I am so scared. Marky's question grabber isn't working. Hey, here we go. Here's a half question from Philly Willy 123 who got cut off due to limiting. Day 9, I'd like to do mid-game Blue Flame Hellion Harass. Sometimes I do significant economic damage and fall into the trap of attacking too quickly before the damage has had time to translate to his army. What's a good time to deal the killing blow? So, one thing that I want to note about the Blue Flame Hellion is that for the most part, Blue Flame Hellions like hurt your standard play almost more than anything. Because, like, you're spending all these resources getting the Blue Flame and then getting the Hellions, which is time that you could have been spending getting tanks. And literally, you have to do a lot of economic damage to be able to get into a good spot. So, sometimes a good way to think of it is that when you deal that damage, rather than asking yourself, when's the good time to deal the killing blow, based on the damage, what I want you to think of is, how do I deal a killing blow in general in this matchup? So for instance, let's take Happy, right? Let's actually pull back way to, not to the logo. Come on, close a little overlay. Here we go. Let's come back to, no, maybe that's a little bit too early. Let's come to like the 12, 16, 15 minute mark. Something like here. There we go. So we're seeing Happy dance around with this army. Particularly like maybe a minute ago. Yeah, perfect. Happy is going to begin pushing here. This is where Happy goes to win. And what does Happy do with his forces of Marines tanks? He just tries to eke them in here and do a little bit of damage. I want you to just watch very closely how Happy does this attack. So he's gonna begin slowly moving up here, making certain to hold this watchtower. He even scans. He gently pokes in there. He's going to pull back. He's going to try to maybe rescan here, get into a slightly better position. We're going to see Happy, you know, like try to advance forward here. Can I maybe do some poking here? It's going to pull back. Maybe swing around a little bit. He's trying to do some dancing around here to try to find some sort of weakness. And here is the moment, right, where Happy, in the course of all this moving, ends up finding this little weak spot. Now, what's so important to note about this is that there was no killing blow moment for Happy, who did no economic damage early on. No economic damage was dealt. He literally was checking here, scanning, pulling back here, scanning, and getting these tanks and Marines in a good position. And then he's going to be pulling back. Often you'll even see Terran players just siege up here and try to do some poking there. That's the way that they try to do those attacks. I think there was even one that happened a little bit earlier. I feel Spider Sense tells me that Happy did an attack early on here that TLO managed to barely repel. So if you do something like a Blue Flame Hellion Harass, rather than asking yourself, when do I attack because I did all this damage, pretend that you did no damage at all. Kind of like how Happy literally did no damage at all in the early game. He was a defender in the early game. So what we're going to see Happy do is just try to push down here. And if Happy had done Blue Flame Hellion Harass, he would still make this exact same attack, still wait for a lot of tanks, a good amount of Marines, some medevacs, and he would push down this alley as just a general strategy thing. And if you did do enough Blue Flame Hellion Harass, you're going to win a little bit faster. But the important thing to note is kind of comes back to this convergence point idea that we brought up right at the start of the daily before it crashed, where you have your usual set of Marines and tanks, and there's these buildings that sort of go along with it, and everything that happens beforehand kind of dumps into that. Works the same way with strategy. Don't think of it in terms of, hey, I did some Blue Flame Hellion harass. Now what's the best way to wrap this game up? You instead want to say something like, I'm gonna wrap this game up with Marines and tanks and medevacs pushing in this alley. How can I help that? Ooh, I can help it with some Blue Flame Hellion harass, and that will put me in this slightly different position. So, in other words, yeah, that's my answer. Yeah. Let's see here. Pure Dog says, Dear Day 9, would you say that these points of convergence exist in other races? Also, do you feel that these points of convergence makes it easier to anticipate your opponent? Definitely. I mean, in other words, StarCraft, how do you play properly? As I said before, in actually the Ghost Daily, I'm using Ghosts on Newbie Tuesday, it was this discussion of, it's an inherently vague question. How do you play this matchup? And the way to do it is to just kind of arbitrarily begin shaping this problem into something that you can actually begin to talk about. And if you watch a lot of games, just a lot in a row, and you start asking yourself, are there these convergence points for the other races? You'll see a lot of things pop up, like in Terran vs. Zerg. Or excuse me, Zerg vs. Terran, where you'll see something like a Zerg has 3 bases with 3 queens. He'll have a Baneling Nest, a Spire, speed for all of them, and he'll be getting plus upgrades for his Zerglings and plus upgrades for his Mutalisks. And you can try to like boil it down to more simple things if you want. You can find convergence points in between there. But it's very useful to kind of have these statements of, yeah, this is kind of what I'm going for. Even watching something like the way Nesty plays Zerg vs. Terran, you'll kind of notice that he'll have 3 bases and a Roach Warren before anything else. Like just saying 3 bases, no layer, and a Roach Warren. And no Baneling Nest. Like, making that statement kind of makes it a lot more straightforward. And then once you've done that, you're like, okay, what's the next thing that I see Nesty do a lot? Oh, he gets a layer, and then he gets Speed Roaches, Speed Banelings, and Mutas. Now I have 2 points in time to just go for. Good luck trying to figure out all the ways to defend things and to try to get ahead with drones and all that stuff. But that's a smaller problem space than just, how does ZVT work? So absolutely, and I think convergence points are some of the best ways to think about everything. Asking one more question before I get food and fix my computer. Oh, here's a great question from Wire77. Dear Day 9, how do you think Iacoic's TVT build, such as the 2-factory 2-starport, fit into the theme of today's daily, as in not having the convergence point you mentioned? That's a very, very important thing to note. Allow me to remove this. The idea of convergence points is, again, to kind of like crunch down all this ambiguousness into seemingly nice little packets. And your brain's done this anyways with sort of openings. Whether you are using the same language as I am or not, you're still looking at your opponent going, oh, he's doing an early expand. Oh, he's doing a fast speedling opening. Oh, he must be going Baneling bust. You're sort of categorizing things. And the fact remains that there are a million different ways of Baneling busting, but you still kind of have that category of discussing it. And what eventually sort of pops out of the way that the RTS games work is that there will be an optimal way to do something. You'll say to yourself something like, he is either going for a really good early expand, or he's going for a really good big barracks aggression play. And what you don't say, but what's sort of implied is, or something else kind of shitty. Or he's going for like a really slow, awful, terrible Banshee harass that's going to show up way late and do nothing to me. So the way that this relates back to the sort of other styles of play is that you'll start to notice that these convergence points occur with other strategies. When someone is going for a big marine tank play, you'll very often see the 2 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport. For someone who's going for mech, you'll very often see 2 factory with tech lab, 1 factory with reactor. For someone who's going for echoics style, you'll suddenly have different points in space that allow you to identify things. So then again, just as you would go into your opponent's base and say something like, aha, I see 1 barracks, no gas, therefore he's either going early expand or for big barracks. You can similarly look at an opponent's base and say, aha, I see 2 factories with tech lab. So he's probably going mech. You can get some predictability to it. Sure, he could theoretically have 2 factories making tanks and then build a bunch of barracks, but that might not really be the most effective thing, because again, you say he's either going for a really good factory play or he's doing a really shitty sort of marine tank play. So the important thing to note is that you can begin identifying whole styles and themes of play the same way you would identify openings of build orders. And this was actually quite common for me, actually for most Zerg players in Brood War, where the Terran would kind of be this black box after he early expanded. Same with Protoss, but I'll just do the Terran example, where the Terran would be this black box. You couldn't really get in there to scout. You couldn't see what was in there. That's why a lot of players opened up Mutalisk, so you could see what was up. But let's say that you just had an Overlord that managed to work its way in there, like if you went for a Speed Overlord first. The way that I would shape my strategy is by going in and saying, oh, he has 2 factories right now. He normally would not have that. So, or he wouldn't have that if he was going for this style. Therefore, he's going for a really tank-heavy, slow push. If I saw 1 factory, I'd be like, oh, he's going for a really aggressive, nimble 1 factory play. So what this means is the way I would respond is just based upon this, in other words, the convergence point, because those builds would always kind of hit different convergence points in space. And again, I could always say something like, yeah, I see 1 factory, technically you could build a second one and still do the slow push, but it'll just be a shitty one, and I can always kill something shitty. It's going to wrap up the daily. Hopefully this recording has been saved. If not, I'm just going to redo it, similar to 304, and until then I'm going to get food. Oh, I love all of you.